statistical, so unpredictable, here on SNL Stats.
Welcome, everyone, to a very special bonus coverage episode of SNL Stats. I'll be your host today. My name is Andrew Haynes, and we will be discussing the newest show produced by Lorne Michaels. It's out on HBO Max as of Thursday, yesterday, starring everyone's favorite presence in the stage left chair on the Weekend Update desk. His name is in the title. We will be talking That Damn Michael Che. So, very excited for this. We will be spoiling almost everything about the show. So, if you haven't seen it so far, feel free to go back and watch before you check this out. But if you've seen it or you're okay with spoilers, you're going to love this episode. I think it'll be really fun. So just to let you know what we're going to do, we're going to kind of talk about the overarching themes, what we liked and what didn't quite work so much, and then dig into the details a little bit more. So we'll hit the highs, the lows, and everything in between. But just to catch everyone up, if you haven't seen our last couple of episodes, SNL Stats has been producing some really quality content lately. Just 2 weeks ago, we had an amazing superfan takeover discussing the greatest SNL impressions of all time, the Mount Impressmore, if you will. And just this week, we produced a milestone interview with the longtime and current SNL director, Don Roy King, who is an absolute legend at 30 Rockefeller Center. So check those out if you haven't. And to go ahead and get started, let me introduce the guests in our panel tonight. So he hosts all of our superfan takeovers. Sammy Kay, how you doing?
Hello, Haynes. It's really exciting to be here to talk about this show. I remember when they initially announced it, I was just super excited because it's always fun to see someone from the current cast of SNL, kind of what they do in their side projects, when they're not at Studio 8H at 11:30 on Saturday. So it's great to be here. Excited to talk about it, and I'm excited to see you in the hosting chair for a change. Puts a lot of pressure off my shoulders. So,
all right,
happy for you to steer the ship.
All right. Well, the pressure's all on me. Yeah, when we heard about this coming out, we just knew it was something we had to cover. We talked with John, the founder of SNL Stats, and he was happy to move forward with this. So I think it's going to be a really exciting episode. Joining us for the first time, we have our friend TJ. He is a podcaster in his own right and an avid listener to the show. TJ, how you doing?
I'm honestly great. I've listened to every SNL Stats episode. I'm a huge SNL fan, and a big comedy fan in general. So I love Michael Che, and anytime that Che makes a joke and you could tell it went a little too far with the crowd, and I'm always cheering him on like a father in the stands that literally no, go for the joke, Che, go for it. Even in prep for this, I watched the show twice and did my own little mini Che retrospective. I rewatched his old special and watched some interviews to kind of like really get his voice, as he was going to be talking about the Black experience a lot in the show.
Excellent. Sounds awesome. I also hit up his most recent stand-up from a few years ago. So that was really great. One of the things that we like to do the first time we have on a new guest, just to build some kind of context for the audience, is have them share their SNL story with us. So if you want to just tell us how you got into SNL and kind of what your experience and history has been like with the show, we'd love to know.
Yeah. Okay. So John did ask me this, and I literally took 2 hours to think about it and try to type it up. So I started watching SNL back in high school, around when Parks and Rec had its second season, and Parks and Rec is my second favorite show. I was channel flipping late at night, and I saw Amy Poehler come on screen, and I was like, "What is she doing?" And she was monologuing, so I just didn't stop watching. And I was like, "Oh, this is really funny." I don't know what I'm watching, but it was a good time. And I've definitely watched, like, all the episodes I've watched have been everything pretty much from like 2009, 2010. Like, I've covered the full 2010s, and I've gone back and watched a good bit of episodes. But I definitely can't say I'm an expert on SNL in terms of its full 46 years, but I definitely have a love of it. But I don't know how much credit I can honestly get, because I am somebody who doesn't have cable, so I do watch it the next morning on Hulu. Now, let me make something very clear, though. I do watch SNL like I'm not a big sports guy, but I watch SNL with like the passion of like a dad watching a Ravens game. Like I am yelling at the screen, like, oh yeah, that's right. It's like, how do you do that impression? Like I am passionate. I love the show, and I'm such a big comedy fan that it's just wonderful to see. Like I remember McKinnon's first episode, and to see like where she is now, it's just really wonderful to see the comedy glow up. So I'm a big fan. I don't know how much I could earn SNL Stats cred, but I definitely, love and I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. That sounds like a great experience. Not knowing that Amy was on SNL and just learning that one night sounds like a lot of fun. If Parks and Rec is your favorite show,
Haynes, if I could jump in real quick, I'll say TJ earns SNL Stats cred in my book by saying he's not a sports guy, because I am not as well.
Hey,
and he's not a sports guy. He treats SNL like a sport. I'm so happy to have TJ on this episode today.
Gentlemen, we are vibing right now. That's what's happening here today.
Vibing, absolutely. So actually, it's funny. I'm not sure why they think this, and I guess it's because of you two. But I heard Keenan, they were doing a promo for the show one time, and it was, coming on after like, some huge college football game or something that was a primetime Saturday night game, and Keenan said, stay tuned and watch us after the football game on NBC. And then he made some sort of joke about there not being a lot of crossover between sports fans and SNL fans. I'm a huge sports fan. I know John is as well. I didn't know that there was a stereotype that SNL fans don't like sports, but I'm happy to break the mold.
I don't know. I'm just a nerd, honestly. So like, so if there's something I'm into, I'm gonna get really nerdy about it. I just never really click with sports that well. I didn't know about that crossover. Like, I will be honest. When I do see that an athlete other than Charles Barkley, because he's hilarious when he hosts, like when I do see an athlete host, I'm kind of like I do roll my eyes a little bit. But every time, that's what I love about the show. Every time you watch, there's going to be some good stuff there. And I don't know. I have a good time,
Sure. And absolutely, athlete guests, hosts, can totally be hit or miss. They really, really can when it comes to understanding the stage and comic timing and that kind of stuff. But to not focus too much on SNL right now, because we do have a lot to talk about, I will start with you, Sammy. Maybe for those who haven't seen it, how would you describe this show?
Ooh, big question. Well, yeah, Michael Che, he created the sketch show. And when I started the first episode, I wasn't exactly sure what to expect because, Michael Che is obviously one of the head writers on SNL, but he is really known for his stand-up. So I wasn't sure exactly what the balance would be, if there would be a lot of stand-up in the show, or was it going to be more sketch comedy focused? And it's kind of, as the way I'm describing it, it's a little bit of both, where each episode has a bit of an overarching theme, and it's all on stuff that's really prevalent, in our lives today. There's an episode all about the police. There's a lot of stuff to do with COVID, so you can tell that this is something that was made really recently. But it's honestly something that I haven't really seen from a sketch show, in some time, where all the sketches really hone in on like kind of one theme idea. Like going into the show, I wasn't sure, are we going to get like an I think you should leave situation where it's kind of like a mixed bag of just randomness? But every episode kind of has a thesis statement, and I think that works in some cases and doesn't work in others. But I found it really interesting overall.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely interesting the way they kind of, hang on to one theme, and the sketches are not particularly independent of each other, but it's rather like a couple of really long sketches that have been broken up into 4 or 5 chunks where you kind of revisit the same storyline throughout the episode. TJ, what was your biggest takeaway from the show?
Well, I am pretty much, for the listeners, I am an African-American Black gentleman, just Black. And so anything that really touches on the Black experience, but also can make me laugh, because anything that touches on that, like, is something I gravitate towards. So I'll be honest, there's lots of like media out there about like, how rough the Black experience is. Like, I'm very aware of it. Like, I don't need to watch like 12 Years a Slave, but like if I'm going to watch Chappelle Show or and Living Color or Astronomy Club or a Black Lady sketch show, and you're gonna talk to me, but also you're gonna make me laugh about it, because I don't need to be black explained to. So my biggest takeaway was just like some affirmations and some laughs, like just getting a chance to like hear Michael Che's voice unhinged is like that was kind of the biggest thing. I was like, all right, so this is what Che really wants to say, and they're letting him say it.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that was kind of maybe my biggest takeaway too, was that he wasn't really just trying to teach us about the world, but he was really trying to teach us about his world, and it was very much his specific perspective. And I think I don't think that he means to speak for all Black people. I think that he probably wants to tell his story, and that's the way it felt. So it was really great to kind of get to know Che a little bit. I mean, off screen, there's the sketches, and then they've got these little breakaway bits where he's kind of, just musing, and you can hear the crew and writers and stuff laughing in the background, and I think it's a great vibe. So, do you guys want to talk about the first episode?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. So, Policin', which opens up immediately with the elevator sketch, which was making the rounds as the teaser for the show. Of course, we get Cecily Strong right off the bat playing the ally. And this is great for me because I actually kind of have a tie. I kind of flip-flop between Michael Che and Cecily Strong being my favorite cast members. I've always been a Weekend Update person, and I like, and this is why we're going to get along, TJ. I like Che's. He's not scared to push the boundaries and be a little bit non-PC and stuff. And I love that. I like you am cheering for those jokes that make the audience pull back a little bit. But as far as character actors, I don't think anyone puts more into their characters than Cecily. Like, she is nuts. She goes through and through, just punching so hard. So opening up with Che and Cecily together was fantastic for me. Did you guys have any thoughts on the elevator sketch?
We kind of touched on it, but Cecily Strong is, such a strong sketch performer that I think it was like a great kind of way to kick off the show. And, as we mentioned before, it's a bit that's kind of laid out throughout the entire episode. It was really nice to kind of see them back together on screen because, I think Cecily is typically on Che's side of the desk on Update. She does like a lot of her characters bouncing off against Che, and I think their chemistry is always really great. And I think, as that sketch progresses, the little button at the end where, they have this long conversation and they're kind of, dealing with his experience and as a Black man, and then at the end, her just not letting him into the gym, and I just thought that was like a great button that I truly did not expect, and it kind of set the tone for like the entire show for me. That series of sketches.
Well, maybe that's why they put it first. TJ, what do you think?
So what's funny is like when John reached out to me about joining you guys, I hadn't yet gotten the news that Che was joining the show. So that was how I found out. And so then I went ahead and just looked up the trailer, and all I needed was that like I think Che was on Fallon. All I needed was that 15 seconds between Cecily and Che. That was it. Sold. Like I am in. There is I enjoyed that so much because so I just got elephant in the room. I'm going to be speaking from the point of the Black experience a lot here as we talk about the show. So when you deal with like direct discrimination, like it's really irritating, but there's something what I love is that Che's talking about something new that Black people experience, which is like an overcorrection that can just be uncomfortable also, where it's like it's rather than like it's like someone was trying to reach for equality, but they overcorrect to like a form of like weird worship, and it's weird, but it's also like you can tell they're trying to force themselves, and it's like uncomfortable. So Cecily channeling what I think I read a review in prep for the show, and somebody called her an anti-Karen, and like what I think is a perfect like term to describe like this type of like overly like this like type of like person who like over like does it, and just I thought it was perfect. But like there was something that Chase said that like where that I thought was like my biggest takeaway from it, which was he mentioned how to Cecily, which is weird because Che's often talking to the audience in these little loose narratives, is that like, hey, he's like, hey, like I get that you're mad, but your mad is over the span of 4 years. My mad is over the span of a lifetime. And like, so a lot of those things that might be educational for some viewers, like to a Black audience, is going to be just more affirming. And so like that like stuck with me as like, yeah, that's true. Like I'm not that bothered by what's going on now because it's just stuff. It's just like another thing that I've seen. So it was weird because I was laughing, but I was also kind of just like nodding my head a little bit too, as he was kind of like going with that. Oh, did also want to add. Oh, I'm sorry. I did also want to add. Cecily is my. She's actually my favorite Weekend Update anchor. That 1 year, my favorite. I love her. I love her. I'm not saying she's the best. I would never say she's the best. I'm saying she's my personal favorite.
Gotcha.
You know, I'm not here to rub anybody wrong.
Now that I think about it, it would have been interesting to see her paired on the desk with Che. We're talking about their chemistry here. Yeah, that would have been interesting. But I digress.
Man, wow, that's crazy. I mean, what if they're talking about this mass exodus? Everyone's been talking about this mass exodus coming, and now we're hearing more and more people are not sure about it. Do you think if Colin left and Che didn't, would he do Weekend Update by himself, or would he ask Lauren to bring Cecily back? She's so good as a character actor, though. Right. I think that's why she's not on the desk.
And that was like their reasoning. I remember at the time, at least in the press, like when because it was kind of a demotion, but it was like we missed all of her characters at the desk. That's why we're bringing in Michael Che, sort of thing. So I don't know. Right. It would be interesting.
I could have sworn I heard that Cecily was voluntary. It was voluntary for Cecily because she wanted to get back into the characters.
I think I remember reading that as well.
Yeah, yep. I could be wrong, but
I yield.
But she is fantastic as a character actor. It's kind of like the way sometimes you'll hear. They'll ask if someone's running for president and they say, I think I can do more good in the Senate, just staying here in the Senate and working on changing law rather than, being in the presidency. So I feel like that's kind of what Cecily's got going on as a character actor. So actually, TJ, it's funny that you say that because that was the thing that stuck with me most as well. And I also really love, just getting back to your point about the 4 years, just being angry for the last 4 years. And I also really love the joke that they used to tell it, where he says, "You're like the new guy in prison. I'm like I'm like the old inmate who's been raped over and over."
And that's what I think is like really like the potent's not the word. What I think is really powerful about a lot of the comedy in the show is that they are able to get real, and really there's things throughout the show, something that a couple episodes down the line where they're talking about, whether or not Che is going to get the vaccine, as they're talking about, he's kind of saying how like Black people don't necessarily want to get the vaccine. His thought process is like, well, they think it's more likely that they're going to die getting shot in the street versus, white people don't have that, fear in the back of their mind. Like that's not something that's present. COVID is what they think is actually something that can kill them. And the way that he's able to really make you like take a beat, like think about like these kind of like issues, hearing his point of view on it, and then hit you with like just a hilarious joke afterwards, that is like kind of the special sauce to this show, I think.
It came so close. It came so close to After School Special a couple times. And then when he addresses it in the third episode and it's like, all right, so this is a very special episode. I just thought that was a kind of an interesting. I was like, all right, brother, like I already know this, but I was like, okay, not everybody that's watching this though, like is someone who does know this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think that was the most poignant takeaway for me from the entire series was that episode, because I was kind of wondering at first why Che seemed so kind of anti-mask, before he explains it in the episode. And and I kept wondering, why is he being so anti-mask? He's being anti-mask on the train. He's being he can't get in the lift because he's not wearing a mask. And I was kind of wondering, like, is this going to be an episode where Che, reveals to us he's an anti-masker or something, and and some sort of COVID conspiracy theorist or something? I didn't know where it was going, and then he explains, and suddenly I realized, why he was illustrating it that way. I had never considered this, kind of philosophical debate about, fatalism and kind of, accepting your death. He's saying, there's a lot of people out there that just are so sure they're going to get shot and die in their neighborhood that it's hard to imagine anything else even being a threat. And so that was a really, that was a really, that was a big moment for me. And it just felt good to know that he wasn't going to preach to me just about being an anti-masker or something.
It felt almost like watching some of Bill Burr's later stand-up, like more recent stand-up, where it's like you really think he's gonna like double down on something and just like be a complete contrarian, and then he like hits you with like so that's what he's trying to say. He kind of gave me that same feeling that like watching some of Bill Burr's like recent stuff kind of does to me.
Absolutely, and I love that thing that Bill Burr does. The way he, it's really great. And he was in fact, I will say, his monologue was probably the most fun for me because it felt like the most controversial when he was doing it. And I am a hardcore.
It was so good.
Yeah, it was so good. It was so good. It was so good. And I am my favorite comedian of all time is Dave Chappelle. I'm obsessed with every word he's ever spoken. Yeah, I mean, but Bill still had a more exciting monologue this year. Even though Chappelle's was everything you wanted. Coming after the election, there's a reason they brought him in to do it. And I had said on this show weeks before, God, please let them bring back Chappelle again.
I remember that.
Oh, good.
I've listened to every episode, bro. Every episode. That's awesome.
That's awesome. He's not kidding. But Bill's monologue was so fun. So certainly race is something that kind of is addressed in every episode, but I feel like it is most direct in the first episode. Is kind of, it feels like that's supposed to be the race episode about policing and stuff. And obviously we talk about race throughout it, but throughout the show. But I feel like if you had to pick one theme for that first episode, like if we talked about the vaccine episode, I might say it was health, because they talk about some health in some other ways too, not just with the vaccine and stuff. I feel like this episode really was like race was the biggest theme, probably. Any comments on that?
I'm gonna disagree with you slightly on that, because as somebody who also, Dave Chappelle is my favorite like comedian of all time, but as somebody who like watches a lot of like white and black media, I don't know, it's just I felt like, and also who knows Michael Che's voice so prevalently as you guys do too, it's like, I don't know, like in the fourth episode when he's talking to Heidi Gardner, like race is such a prevalent, like race for me is like synonymous with like Michael Che's voice. Like I can understand it seeming more prevalent, but for me, it was the entire, like the black experience was the shadow, or like kind of like just like not symbolic. It was it was I can't figure out the right word, but synonymous with like this show. Like they were like DNA. They were intertwined. Michael Che's voice, sketch comedy, and like race. Like I can't at least find a big separation in that, because like it just kind of seems to run through every little bit of like Michael Che's takes.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. Yeah, I don't think I don't think that you can pull out the race from any part of this show. It's like you said, it's woven into the fabric for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So let me just ask you guys, does anyone have a favorite sketch
from this episode?
From the whole series.
Well,
we can just talk about our favorite things.
Yeah. I did want to, say specifically about this episode. Throughout the entire show, for me, the kind of like commercial parodies that they did throughout, the different products that they
Second chance pill.
I thought for me, like those, every single commercial parody, like absolutely killed for me. And, it kind of ties back to SNL to where, a lot of those kind of pre-taped bits have been some of the stronger stuff in the season. I know we talk a lot about how like some of the live material, this season, sometimes isn't as strong, but specifically from the policing episode, the Fitbit protest I thought was hilarious. And I do think it was like a good example of kind of poking at both kind of, sides of things. And I'm trying to think. You did mention. I don't want to take up all the oxygen here, but I do want to hear your guys' thoughts on the Fitbit protest as well.
The minute that the phrase "you just saved 4 Black lives" came across the screen, I laughed my ass off. I lost it when I saw that. The smile on the person's face combined with that phrase, bruh.
Me too.
I lost it.
And I didn't think I could laugh any harder until that woman went, "We just marched farther than MLK."
That was great.
No, and then also for them to take the spin, like to kind of like, they even kind of like not double down. They kind of just went even further. And then there was like, so like you're on the opposite side. We got you, bro. Fitbit Confederate. And I was like, what? Like if you have like the
right. Whether you're for Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, and they have Confederate one. Just great
That's
stuff.
Crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And it just goes back to the whole, Michael Che Untamed sort of thing. It's like every time I like imagine when he was like developing the show, every time there was a bit on SNL where the audience didn't laugh, he's like, all right, I'm going to put this to the side and I'm going to expand on this idea into my sketch show, into my HBO show.
So funny.
Fun fact. I thought we were going to talk about that. And I have a little secret fact here, actually, a little nugget to actually address that. So I don't know if either of you guys listen to the Breakfast Club radio program. No? Okay.
Not.
Do you know what that is? The Breakfast Club?
I know what it is.
Yeah. All right. So on the Breakfast Club, Che was he was on the show like a few days ago, and I love Michael Che. I love the Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club is just black radio in the morning. That's just what it is. But it's great. Anyways, and so Charlemagne asked Che that same question about like, was there anything from SNL that you just decided to pop over here? And Che mentioned he was like, no, actually everything was written during the summer. And he didn't have any, like he said he had like 85-90% of like what he had like was just like him and the writers, but there wasn't any crossover with SNL, which was shocking because you would think the brother writes sketches on the biggest sketch show in the world, and you would think, all right, well, it's like I got a Google Doc like when I make this HBO Max show, but like no, like and granted, who knows? Like I'm gonna choose to believe him because he also had completely different writers. I mean, granted, I don't know if Sam J was also in the room when he was writing, but like that was surprising to me that there wasn't any crossover because like also the fact that they let him do this show. Like you're gonna make a sketch show while you're writing on a sketch show. I mean, that's exactly what I'm about to do.
That is a good point.
I thought it was amazing, like especially in the last episode, how HBO just let them take so many digs at HBO Max. Just like when he's at the church and he's like, well, you're on the HBO Max. Like, you're not on like regular HBO. He's like, it's like the same thing. It's the same.
And I love how not the church and his friends, everyone just keeps being like, I like Fleabag.
Yeah, that was great.
Like the idea that black people just love. Granted, I'll be honest, I do like Fleabag, but like the idea that like Fleabag has this whole like just unknown black audience. I mean, granted, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is going to be working with Donald Glover on the show, so brothers are more likely to check out Fleabag. I mean, it is likely, but that was just a funny little detail.
Well, I think the pastor also mentioned that he liked Atlanta a lot. He was like, Atlanta.
He did,
that's really funny. So Anything else jump out as what was some of your favorite stuff, Sammy?
Ooh, some of my favorite stuff. So we kind of touched on it a little bit, but Jeffrey Owens, who played the Doctor in two sketches. He played in the Second Chance Pill sketch, and I'm blanking on the other sketch he was in. It was in a couple of episodes later, but I think for me, the sketches he was in, just him as like a guest, he was like almost like an MVP of the show for me. A couple years ago, there was that kind of story that came out about him. Not story, it was just like he worked at like Trader Joe's or whatever, and it kind of blew up on Twitter. But it's he's from the Cosby Show, I believe, right? Yeah,
he was the oldest son. Yeah, on the Cosby Show.
Yes. But I digress. He's just like he was great. The Second Chance Pill was hilarious. I love how they put like doctor in quotations like every time they like have his name on screen. Oh God, I'm really blanking on the other sketch he was in. But yeah, you guys can talk on that a little bit, and I'll try to find it.
The moment the camera zooms out to show us that he's packing up his desk.
Yes. Oh, and it's dick ties, by the way. Dick ties is the other sketch. Yes, that was great. The visual of that, where they're both at the urinal, and the guy's like about to get a promotion or whatever, and he's just like,
he looks down and goes, "Nah, I don't think you're okay."
I think just the delivery of the line, "How much you think it'll cost? $5, maybe $10?" Like just the delivery of that line for some reason sent me.
Okay, so to talk about both the Jeffrey Owens sketches, which were awesome, and yes, one of the notes that I had about dick ties was, "Dick ties makes me laugh." Like, I don't know why, it just did.
Right.
It was so funny. So funny.
Great visual gag.
Really funny at the end, in particular, when the guys, they're beside the urinal and he says, "Johnson, I want to talk to you about those reports." And he looks down and goes, "Actually, they're looking pretty good." So you got the promotion. And the guy goes, "All right."
Was the guy's name actually Johnson? Or did you just?
I think.
Okay, yeah, because that makes it even better. I must have missed that.
Right. So that was very funny. But the Second Chance Pill was absolutely one of my favorite sketches from the show. And yeah, TJ, like you were saying, I got a kick out of the $5 or $10 thing. And then they touched on it, when they're in the bed, and the woman's, she wants to have sex, and the guy's already jacked off, and she says, "Well, take one of your Second Chance pills." And he's like, "Oh, I already did. I jacked off twice." and she's like,
"Well, just
okay.
Take another one."
She's like, "Well, can you take one for me now?" And he's like, "And who's going to give me the money for it? Are you going to give me the $10? I thought they were $5. Sometimes they're 10." That was a really great line, and I don't know why I thought it was so funny, but it was really funny. I already jacked off and I haven't peed yet. It was very funny to me. It was very funny to me. So it'll sting.
Sometimes they're $10. It's just
I know, it's so funny.
And that's a great example. Yeah, and those two sketches are just great examples how the show can get real, and it could have just like the dumbest kind of dick joke humor as well. Yes. And I just think that the way that they're able to kind of balance that within episodes is actually pretty impressive.
Well, speaking of doctors, I really enjoyed Dr. Doogie Huxtable as portrayed by the incomparable Method Man, and I really loved the prostate exam sketch that starts out with him. The guy's nervous and he's telling him, "Well, you got to be mature. This is something that you've got to get over, these, fears and stuff. It's time to grow up, and this is something we have to take seriously at our age." And he says, "So, you'll take your pants off and bend over." And so he nervously starts to take his pants off, and Meth is like, whoa, what are you doing, man? Like, you told me to take my pants off. I'm confused. Like, I'm still in the room. And all of a sudden he's got all these like homophobic fears and stuff. Very funny. The nurse comes in and they start busting his chops. And he's like, he says, you thought you thought I was going to stick my finger up your ass and you signed up for this? Like, what are you on, bro? And that's very funny. The nurse comes in and then for some reason in that episode, every sketch, someone is live streaming, like everyone's going live. It was very funny to me.
I got
for some reason,
people up in my live right now. Like,
yeah, exactly. Who is that? Oh, that's Patrice, Angie's friend. And so I really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that sketch, and of course, funny when we got to see him later too, come out all covered in blood when Jay didn't know if his buddy had died, and he said, "I don't know how to tell you this, but I don't know who you are." And then he gives him the bloody mask to put on. Very funny. So Method Man was he's gotten to be a really good actor. Like, he's really good. He was cracking me up.
Yeah, he was funny. Lots of good, just in general, medical situational humor in this show. The one that sticks out to me is, I believe it was in the last episode where his buddy, is at the doctor, and like the nurse has to feel his balls, and he's trying to get hard. He's thinking Rihanna, Beyonce, he tries to go on Pornhub, and he doesn't have service. And then, at the end, she just laughs, and then it kind of ties in at the end where they're all at the bar, and she's showing someone a picture, and then it ties. And I just love how a lot of these sketches really just bleed into each other, because this kind of ties in the Homegirl commercial parody sort of thing as well, where the Homegirl thing I also thought was really funny, where there's an app basically, if you're at the grocery store or whatever, and a girl is giving you a hard time, you can't fight back, so you basically Uber someone to fight for you. And so that ties into that sketch as well. So it was interesting to see kind of stuff really, it all kind of exists in the same universe. Every sketch, it wasn't all isolated situations.
That's great. And I will say one thing about the final doctor sketch where she's got to inspect his testicles, and he's naming women that he's trying to think of to try and get hard. For some reason, it was so funny to me. Yeah, he's going Issa Rae, Beyonce, or whoever, and then he goes, Michelle Obama, and he pauses, with all due respect.
I didn't catch that, because to be honest, the funniest thing for me was because as I've just growing up, you hear about people talking about how beautiful Rihanna is, how beautiful Beyonce is, how beautiful Halle Berry is. I've heard how beautiful Halle Berry is in every conversation I've had since I grew up in Baltimore, whatever. But the one that cracked me up, and this is such a small odd detail, was when he said Issa Rae. Don't get me wrong, Issa Rae is gorgeous. Shout out to Titty Meat Sketch back when she hosted. But Issa Rae is gorgeous. She's beautiful. But for some reason I was oh, is Issa Rae now added to the lexicon of beautiful black women? That's what my head went. I laughed, but I was is that you just okay? So Issa Rae, she's out there now. She's with Halle Berry. For some reason, that small detail made me laugh. I was Issa Rae, you don't expect it to come out. And
it sounds like this may have cemented her in the top tier, because those were top tier.
Right.
She is top tier. She's gorgeous.
She's on the Rushmore.
Yeah. So Sammy, you got ahead of me, because my favorite sketch is the Homegirl sketch.
Oh, nice.
There's something so wonderful about the idea of being able to put someone in their place by calling up your homegirl who can fight and having her sell it for you. And just also, I don't know if you guys also caught this, but the Homegirl app shows up in the first episode. It's in the elevator. There's a little that, and Coco Shango shows up a couple episodes before. A couple of things pop up before he even mentions them, which makes me wonder how they edited everything together, or how they constructed the show format.
Yeah.
But you got me. The Homegirl app was my favorite, and then it was I was a big sucker for Body by Calvin.
So funny.
Yes.
Bodies by Calvin, and not spelled the plural, spelled possessive. BODY apostrophe S. Bodies by Calvin.
I love how one of the girls is I showed up to Calvin and I said I wanted to lose some weight, and he's like, "Why do you say that? You got the gushy. We're just gonna do some stretches." And she's like, "Okay, that's fine. I like this."
I really okay. So this is being recorded, and there's gonna be a video of this that lives on the internet for the rest of my life. So I want to make sure that I say this in the correct way. The reason I love the Body by Calvin sketch is not only was it absolutely hysterical, but it was also like just knowing how guys who love booty are. And as a member of that community myself, the funniest thing to me about like the woman recounting the story. So I showed up and I had a jacket around my waist, and Calvin told me to get rid of that. And I said, like, no, I feel more comfortable. And then he asked me to leave. And and the idea that his whole focus is just like, it's not about workout. The whole focus of this man is like, I just want you to be thick. I don't care where the thickness is, but that's the whole, like, I know that he didn't say that, but like that's that mentality. Like when the girl is, it's like
lasagna, oxtail,
yeah,
chicken parm.
exactly. It's like all he had me do were squats, and I'm like, all he cares about is that booty. And I'll be completely honest, I'm 100% behind this workout plan. Not for myself, but I would donate happily. Let me stop. No, I know that because it was funny. There was also like a small detail about okay, so I don't want to get too in the weeds here, but like so I have dated girls in the past that like they had like a nice butt, and I was like, oh hey, do you have like a nice butt or whatever? And she's like, wait, what? Like I've never gotten compliments on that before. And I'm like, well, you clearly haven't been told appropriately. You haven't like been told, you haven't been given good information and whatever. And so they've never had like, like I don't want to say this. They've never like had it appreciation of like their body or whatever. And it's so funny because like certain type of guys will appreciate bodies just differently. And I like really resonated with how Calvin appreciated the body, which is like, baby, you can be however, like you got a nice butt. Like, I don't care. Like it's that idea for me is what like, that's what I bought it with, was just like, he's just, I just want you to have a fat ass. That's it. That's all. So like,
This was an awesome sketch. It was a really great sketch, and Godfrey playing Calvin. And we saw a lot of great comedians, regulars from the Comedy Cellar. Yamanika Saunders is in there.
Oh, I love her. Love her.
Yes. Chris DiStefano and Greer Barnes, and so I love all these real like long time working badass comics being on the show. I love that. But particularly with that sketch, I loved how he said, I got in shape when I was locked up in college. And then and then later when it introduces his buddy or his cousin that keeps saying that's a fact, he's like, at the bottom it says college cellmate underneath his name. So that was funny, and he's like, we will get you in shape right here in my sister's apartment.
There's just
but only
so much...
in 6 weeks. Yeah, in 6 weeks, because we're not trying to be in this long term.
See, you guys got a chance to watch the show twice, and I only got a chance to watch it once. I'm excited to go back and like catch all these a lot of these jokes that I missed, and especially like as TJ was saying, certain things that show up in later episodes as like the main sketch that are kind of the little Easter eggs. That'll be fun to find.
Can I also give a special shout out to what was my favorite SNL piece in here, which was because I'm a big Heidi Gardner sucker. I like the big three: Heidi Gardner, Cecily Strong, Melissa Villaseñor. I'm a simple man, you know what I'm saying? Granted, everyone's wonderful, but those are my favorites. So Heidi's reveal, which I think we could all appreciate, where she stops amid like, wait a minute, you think I'm a therapist? I'm a prostitute. It's like sex worker. Like every time he corrects them by saying, like, you're not a prostitute, you're a sex worker. And like that bit comes back multiple times. Like just, Heidi had to have fun, like with two things in that sketch. One, her getting to say fuck, like on being taped, getting to say the word fuck because she doesn't get to a lot. And then also her getting to do this accent while playing this like this prostitute pretending to be a therapist just sounds like the perfect Heidi Gardner like fun thing. She is, I don't want to call her the next Cecily Strong, but her and Cecily share a lot in terms of like character devotion. Even though Heidi's definitely more of an actress, where Cecily's probably more of a character.
I hear that, but listen, Heidi is an amazing character actor. There's a reason that she's a Weekend Update character so often. She has amazing characters, and everyone knows on this podcast we are huge fans of Heidi.
I'm on record on this podcast saying that Heidi Gardner will win an Oscar one day because she is that committed to her characters. That is,
I remember
that is on the record, and I have not changed my tune.
Who's the person that also is gunning for Pete to get an Emmy? I've heard that in multiple episodes, and I'm
Haskell.
like, it's okay.
Yes.
I was like, who is also the other person that's like pulling for an award? Just like Pete getting that. I mean, I hope he gets it, but like it's an interesting one.
It's Andrew Haskell, one of our super fans, and he likes credit for it. He wants the credit for it, and we're giving it to him. He doesn't want us to forget, and he called it. And I hope that he's right someday. But this sketch reminds me of something that was I took away from multiple episodes of the show, which was that there are a lot of late reveals with characters, a lot of late character reveals. Like it was. It's a while before we realized that Heidi is a sex worker. And honestly, when we were talking before this show, before this podcast, I actually hoped that we would discuss this and someone would say prostitute or hooker so that I could interject sex worker. But there's a lot of late reveals, even, so it's a little while before we realize that she is a sex worker, which is very funny. And it's all the way at the very end of the damn episode before we realize Florence is a sex worker too. So funny.
I love also, I'm also really enjoying, Haynes, I'm really enjoying seeing you correct yourself. Like, as you're speaking it right now, about to say but then you correct yourself and say, like, I love just seeing in your brain, like, that's what's happening in that moment.
It's funny. It's funny. And it's definitely what's happening. So there, I feel like there were a lot of late reveals, like the rich guy. We get basically all the way through his bit, when Grace is on the date with the rich guy before we realize he's in a wheelchair, and then he comes back and he's kind of a completely different character, and and even a little bit of a reveal with Cecily's character in the first sketch. Although I think we can all tell that the white woman who is, like, as you put it, who is overcorrecting is, I think you can kind of tell that she's going to be the type of person, the fake ally who, when you get to the gym, like, she closes the door and goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Very nice to meet you." And sneaks around the corner.
She's an ally. She's an ally.
Mm-hmm. Right.
One of my favorite, I guess this is kind of a late reveal, but we haven't necessarily touched on the vaccine episode where Connor O'Malley, who is one of my favorite funny guys in the world, who I believe is also A.D. Bryant's husband, right? He is, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? The guy who plays the agent in the 5th episode, Che's agent.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah.
Oh.
He has an insane YouTube channel, by the way, if you haven't ever checked out his videos. But I love the kind of reveal at the end where how no one at the vaccination party, had gotten the vaccine. they give it to Che after he said he didn't want it. Give it through his shirt because he's like, "Oh, well, I thought you were gonna, back out, so it's a good thing I did it through the shirt." And then they're all like, "Well, I guess, how do you feel?" And then he's like, "I feel fine." "Oh, great, it works." And then everyone starts getting the vaccine. Just like that was a great reveal.
The doctor steps back and goes, "I think it works, everyone." You think? So that was very funny. Actually, something that we haven't gotten to talk about yet that I really enjoyed about the show was all the writers, the SNL writers who got to be on. Anna Dresden was the first White Castle rep that we see talking, and Brian Tucker, who I love. Brian Tucker, who wrote for Chappelle Show and is a long time SNL senior writer. He's been there since 2005, and he was co-head writer, I think, for 5 seasons, 39 to 43. Great to see him. And when he delivered that murder burgers line the first time, I was crying. I hope that he wrote that line. Because I thought murder burgers was very funny.
In the White Castle sketch?
He was the guy. He was the gentleman who was, he tried to tell a little bit of a joke, and then he goes, "Oh, you guys can't even let me have one laugh." And then he talked about the murder burgers. That was Brian Tucker.
Was he the slightly older gentleman?
Sure. Yeah, slightly older, I would say. Yes. He's probably in his 50s or something. Speaking
of SNL writers, my favorite SNL writer was in the vaccine episode, Sam J. I'm a big Sam J fan. I love her specials. She even has it. What's funny is the whole like HBO versus HBO Max debate that's going on when Michael has his HBO Max thing, and Sam J, literally, I think a day or two before Shay's show came out, it was announced Sam J's getting an HBO, like not an HBO Max, but an HBO show. So for that like debate to be happening, and then for her to be in his show, I just thought that was such like a funny little meta thing going on. But Sam J, who I could watch her voice in literally anything. She's just like a more funny Lena Waithe. Like to me, like I think she's hysterical. So like having her play a Barbara, I know she didn't really get a chance to like flex her comedic chops like here, but I'm a gigantic fan of her stand up. So I was just like, I'm always just happy to see Sam J show up. Literally,
absolutely. Yeah. Sam J's awesome, and another stalwart of the Comedy Cellar, another real comedian, doing stand up work out there that you can see pretty regularly. So that was awesome, and if as long as we're going to bring up the barbershop, that was very funny. The dude slinging them 2 for $5. But
you selling vaccines in a barbershop? You're not okay. Like you're not okay.
I would not say you're okay. Yeah. So funny. And although that dude maybe had the best line of that sketch when he pointed and goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of y'all has herpes. I'm totally going to start doing that now. I remember Louis C.K. did something similar on a tour that I saw him one time. I saw him one time on tour, and he said, it was like a 2,000 person auditorium, and he was like, "Next week, 6 of you will be dead. You just have to accept that. By the numbers, that's going to happen."
I remember that.
So I love that, and I'm definitely gonna try and this is a perfect theme for our show, but I'm gonna try and bring more of those statistics to life in my own life. I think it's a great way to tell a joke.
Well, this is SNL Stats after all.
It is. And anything to say about the barbershop sketch, Sammy?
I just kind of echo what you guys all said. I mean, the barbershop sketch was great. That was in the vaccine episode, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and touching on the Sam J, I mean, I think even though she didn't necessarily have like all of like the funniest stuff to do in that sketch, she played like a great kind of like straight woman. And that is also super challenging as well to kind of anchor the whole thing. But yeah, definitely enjoyed the barbershop sketch.
I don't know if it was this vaccine episode, but there was a moment where Michael says, "Yeah, my white manager wants me to take it." Like I could have sworn it was a vaccine episode, but knowing that he's just talking about Lauren and calling Lauren a white manager was the funniest thing to me.
That's really funny, and
I white manager.
I didn't put that together. I thought he was just talking about the manager as played by Connor.
I had the same thought, TJ. That was really fun.
I did not think about Lauren.
To call Lauren a white manager.
I mean, he looks like a white manager to me.
No, it's true, but it was such like it's Lord Michaels, and he's so nonchalant about my white manager wants me to go take this vaccine.
I would love to see a conversation between Lauren and Shay. Lauren trying to convince Shay to get the vaccine. That could be that could have been a sketch in itself.
Absolutely, you're right about that.
Lots of in general great SNL just cast alum. I mean, there's a lot of the current cast on there, but Colin Quinn as the priest in the 6th episode. When that sketch starts and he's in confession and you hear the voice, I'm like, okay, this is someone. This is going to be someone. And then when there was Colin Quinn, I was super happy. Ellen Cleghorn, the great Ellen Cleghorn, who was in a couple episodes, right? As Michael Che's mom. Always great to see her pop up. The Colin Jost cameo, I mean, just
so funny.
Fantastic. Because, at first, they have someone who was playing Che initially.
Omari Hardwick.
Yes,
I don't know where he's from, but I know he's really famous.
Yeah, and then out of nowhere, when they just have Jost pop in as Michael Che, kind of harking back a little bit to the joke swaps of it all. Just their awesome recurring bit. But yeah,
it was so funny. Che, you immediately see Jost on stage as Che, and and the hand movement that he used when he kind of lectured the crowd and goes, "As a black man." That got a good laugh out of me. But the whole Jost thing was so funny. The kid raises his hand and asks a question and says, "Have you ever done anything gay to be in Hollywood?" And he says. And the lady's going, "Oh, that's not a thing." And he goes, "Well, it depends on what you mean by gay." And then he goes into the ice cream story and goes, "Yeah, I was at a party one time with this big exec, and he had his dick in a bowl of ice cream, and he goes, 'Hey, if you want to make it in Hollywood, you gotta lick the ice cream off my dick.' And I said, 'No, but I will eat the ice cream if you take your dick out of it.' And I did, and here I am."
And he's like, and then he's like, "Deal."
Deal. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was great. That was so good. And these, that, like you said, the cast members, it was amazing to see them all. Ellen Cleghorn, so fantastic, and particularly when she's talking to the son after she's found the gun, and he says, "I'm hiding it for someone." She pulls out the police baton and says, "Oh, are you keeping this too?" And then but when he says, I just forgot what a good actor she is, when he says that he tells her that he took the police exam. She bats her eyes in the craziest way that just had me rolling. It was like real actor chops. So good. And, TJ, since you've already told us your favorite Weekend Update host, I will tell you, famously known in huge groups, a lot of people say he's the worst Weekend Update host of all time. I don't know why. My favorite Weekend Update host has always been Colin Quinn. I absolutely love Colin Quinn. I loved his, he's so gritty and New York, and he was himself the whole time. He's not acting at all. I absolutely loved Colin Quinn when he was on the desk. And so, having him back for this was very funny. "Well, what's bothering you, my son?" "Everything, son." So that, loved having him back. What any thoughts on further thoughts on Colin Quinn or the priest sketch?
So Colin Quinn is one of those comics that, for as big of a comedy nerd as I am, I know his name more than I know his material. So I've always seen him. I've seen him show up in different guest spots. I was watching HBO's Girls, the whole show last fall, and so I know he was in a couple episodes, but he's not really Colin Quinn there. He's just Lena Dunham gave him a job. And I was watching the Patrice O'Neal documentary, and he's a lot in that. And they talk about his old show, Colin Quinn's Tough Crowd. And I was like, oh, this is a really interesting show. I'd love to watch a bunch of it. Seems pretty chaotic. I tried to find it, but I couldn't really find it anywhere. Maybe I just didn't dig hard enough. So Colin Quinn is somebody that I know is respected, but I don't really know his comedic voice too well.
Interesting. Well, I think you can find at least clips of Tough Crowd with Colin Quinn. I know that I've seen them on YouTube fairly recently, within the past month or two. I've watched a couple of them, and they do have some comedians who've been around a long time. Norton and some of his other the Lower East Side friends, I guess. And so Tough Crowd is a good one to check out. It's a tough crowd because they tackle tough issues. So you got comedians talking about awkward issues, and it can be a pretty fun watch. It can also make you kind of clench for a second, and you're like, oh God, what is this person about to give me a really shockingly controversial opinion? But yeah,
I love those moments. I'm sorry.
Well, there's plenty of them on Tough Crowd. If you find a way to find Tough Crowd, there are plenty of them there. I think one of the most surprising line, I would say, the one that completely took me by surprise, and I have no idea, how or why this line got written, because we can all tell how old Colin Quinn is just from looking at him. But when he said, he's incredulous that Che is playing Madison Square Garden. Really? Just you by yourself? Are you sure? Just you? Really? Just you? Like, yeah. Is that so crazy? Well, I just remember being a kid and seeing Dane Cook sell the place out.
Which I also love that line because, again, as like an SNL fan, he was on SNL. He left SNL like years before like Dane Cook blew up in like the mid 2000s. So that was a great line. And
Dane Cook is just the funniest comedian to bring up to me. I don't know why that was funny, but
God, he used to be huge.
He was huge.
I remember when he was. I remember. Because I know I didn't watch all the way through, but I remember seeing that Madison Square Garden special air. Like I remember like seeing it come on cable, and I was like, "Oh, I'll watch something else." But like I just remember like how big he was.
I've seen Dane Cook live like 3 times in the past like 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles, like a couple of times, and I think he still got it. To be honest, I don't know if that's yeah, he had some good stuff. He some of his personal life and relationship stuff. He's been able to kind of mine some funny material from that.
I always this is something that would honestly people could create a whole podcast about this, but I always thought it was very interesting how in the pre-Netflix era, once there was that kind of comedian track. A comedian would do a show like Premium Blend or Live at Gotham. They had 5 minutes. Then they did Comedy Central Presents, and then they would get like an hour special. And they might get a few more, and then maybe they might get like a show. And if the show didn't do well, like their career would plummet. You just wouldn't see them anymore. Like it happened to it almost happened to Anthony Jeselnik or like Dimitri Martin's probably a good example, but they have Netflix specials. But Dane Cook is I feel like a good example of like one of those comics. Like he had that trajectory, and Comedy Central was that only avenue. And why are we talking about Dane Cook? I'm just catching myself. But he had that trajectory, and then for some reason he fell off. Like I have no idea why. And now you just don't. You hear him as like a butt of the joke. Again, John, you can take all of this Dane Cook material.
No, we got to spin this off into a Dane Cook pod. We can talk about the episode of SNL he broke down or that he hosted a couple years back.
This is what people need. This is the niches of like podcast materials, like Dane Cook's career.
Yeah, you're right. It's getting cut. Yeah.
Speaking of cut, the Family Chop is a sketch that we have not talked about, and he did a couple of these like kind of game show reality sketch parodies throughout the show. There's the Family Feud one, which as a you can't think of Steve Harvey and Family Feud without SNL's Kenan Thompson doing Family Feud. So it was interesting to see. I'm not familiar with who portrayed Steve Harvey in that sketch, but
I think that might have been Godfrey as well.
Yeah,
that was not Godfrey. I don't think it was because Godfrey's much darker than that Steve Harvey was.
I don't remember. We'll have to look it up.
I don't know.
Look it up.
But I digress. But the Family Chop sketch I thought was great. How he, saying to be successful in Hollywood, he has to, do a blood sacrifice for one of his family members. And it's between like his aunt and it must have been like an uncle or something. And then he finds out like halfway through the sketch that it's not his actual aunt. It's just like a really good friend of his mom's from growing up. And then he's like, oh, well, he made the decision a lot easier for me. And she's like, in what way? And it just kind of pans in with the dramatic music. And then
I don't know if that's I don't know like if that's like an all cultures things, but I definitely have. You guys might be able to tell me. I have way more aunts that aren't related to me than aunts that are related to me. Like all of my aunts, except like one, none of them are related to my mom, but they're family. Like I thought it was a funny thing. I was like, I don't think that's just a black thing. but like it made me every now and then I'll see something that like I've grown up and I've just known my whole life, and then I'll see it on the screen and I'm like, hold up, is this a black thing or is this just like a people thing?
I mean, I definitely, definitely growing up, I had like a lot of like my good family friends, like my parents' friends. I would refer to like uncle this, aunt that. But now, if I were to see them, I feel like that's like been retired as a phrase. Like I just call them by their name. You know, I don't know.
Weird. Oh no, they still got the aunt title. Like you got they still got the aunt respect. You know.
Yeah. So I've literally never had any female person that I'm not related to referred to as an aunt. I've never had anyone that's not an aunt referred to as an aunt. But the uncle thing, I don't know why uncle is so common in my life and aunt never was. But whenever like, a family friend would come over, they would always, kind of jokingly, but they would refer to him as Uncle John or whatever. I go see my friends' kids, and I'm just friends with them. We're just have been buddies all our life. And, he'll say, oh, there's Uncle Andrew. You guys, say hey to Uncle Andrew. I don't know why that's a thing, but it definitely uncle has been a thing in my life. I've not experienced the aunt thing, only the uncle thing. So very, very interesting that just one side of that.
Speaking of kids, this might mean I'm just too dark of an individual, but in the Family Chop sketch, when Che realized he has to eliminate one of the kids, my brain went to the moment where Anakin in what is it? I think it's
Revenge of the Sith.
When Anakin is going to take out the younglings. Like my brain.
That's amazing. I
my
love
brain
that.
went there immediately. Like that camera angle of the kids in like this over. I don't know if it was over the shoulder of Che. I don't think it was, but my brain just like the looks of the kids' faces just reminded me of when Anakin takes out the younglings.
It would have been amazing just to see a lightsaber just kind of pop out there at the end, and then they just end it there, and that could have been the end of the sketch. Definitely, I don't think that's Che's type of humor necessarily.
No, I agree. I was like, this is just me. This is not Michael Che. This is me. My brain went there immediately.
I will just say, and we probably shouldn't spend too much time on Star Wars, but I will just say, even though I own all the films, I do not watch episodes 1, 2, and 3, and I didn't even recall that.
Yeah, you got to give love to Revenge of the Sith, though.
It's the best one. It's the best one of this. Yeah. So, actually, oh my God, I told you guys that. Or maybe I didn't, but the wheelchair guy, the date when she's with the rich guy was, for some reason, that was one of my least favorite parts. It didn't feel like there was a lot of jokes there, and I get it. He's rich and aggressive and stuff, but he did have one of the best lines of the whole series that really got a hard laugh out of me. And that's when he told her that he wanted to suck her vagina like a cigarette down to the butt.
That was a good line.
He said, down to the butt. Oh my God. It took me aback and I was crying laughing. That's an incredible line. And I don't think that there'll ever be a circumstance where I use it, but it was hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. So that was a great line. For me, that was a great one-liner.
That man was down bad. Like that brother was down bad. Like he was I don't think brothers on Instagram are that thirsty. Like, good God. Wow. That line.
Yeah, it was funny.
My gosh.
Well, since we're kind of moving toward the end of the episode here, are there any other just huge points that really stuck out to you guys that you feel like we have to get in before we get out of here? Or was there anything that just completely didn't work for you? Sammy, I'll let you go first.
Sure. Well, I guess as far as sketches we haven't hit yet, which I'm surprised that we haven't, I believe it was in the second episode where was it Gary Richardson who was like the teacher, and he's bringing in someone to talk about addiction, and the guy's just talking about hoes. Like that was one of the highlights for me, which we haven't hit yet. One of my favorite lines from that sketch, and I'm gonna totally butcher it, was something like he's like asking the kids for like signs of a hoe, I think. And one of them's like, oh, she lies. And he's like, I've definitely seen some lying hoes, or like in my lifetime. I really enjoyed that sketch. As far as things that didn't necessarily work for me, yeah, you'll have to come back to me on that one. But you guys could. I'd love to hear your thoughts on.
Well,
isn't
that a great review of the show?
It's because I've only watched it once, and I'm trying to be positive. The cream rises to the top. I definitely liked more things than disliked in that show. I'll say that. Yeah.
TJ?
Ain't nobody talking about women. I'm talking about hoes. The delivery of that line. Did anybody else get Tyrone Bigham's early Chappelle show vibes from that sketch?
A little bit. And the pastor does reference Chappelle show as a show that he actually misses. So little homage to Dave there.
So I'm going through my notes here to see like what was something that like I know that we hadn't touched on. I thought it was very funny that we had a mock Chris Hansen that a black kid brought to tears.
That was great.
That was really funny. It's just like stray notes.
Can I just comment on Chris Hansen before we move on?
Yeah.
So that sketch I did think was definitely one of the ones that got the least laughs out of me. But there was one line that absolutely killed. He's explaining. The kid's like, "Where are you, the police?" He's like, "No, I'm her husband." Or he says, "That's my wife," and he goes, "Man, that's not your wife. She's for the streets." I was crying. That was awesome. That was so funny.
That kid, like whoever that actor was, I had so much fun like watching that kid just utterly disrespect Chris Hansen. I don't know why.
So
I love that. Say other stray notes I had is that so the town hall in memoriam sketch, which talks about how basically it just shows a bunch of like Karen or Carl type people's like ranting and then dying of COVID, gave me serious Parks and Recreation vibes. Just like in an HBO Max type of version.
I'd say to touch on that was a sketch where I didn't like love that when they first introduced it, but then when they bring it back at the end, where they go through all of the people who instead of died from COVID this time, it's just like the real kind of stuff. Yeah, they just got shot or whatever. I thought like that was like a good payoff for something that I didn't necessarily. The setup I didn't necessarily love. Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm gonna get. I want to make sure I say this like in like a good way, respectfully. No, I saw. Something for some reason that like rang true was Shay's statement that like black people are simultaneously the most liberal and conservative people. Like we will like stand for justice about something, but as long as it's something we don't like. That we do, as long as it's something that we tolerate. And I just thought about like my parents. I'm not like calling out my parents, but it made me think about my parents. How like there are certain things I know my like dad is like completely for and will stand up for, and then there's just some stuff he's just like, oh sorry, he just will not, and I don't know why. So like then that segueing into a sketch called The Bravest Ninja in the Team. And then seeing how like he's inspiring these brothers and like how the black dudes are like hesitant to like get in on the cause. I was like, I've seen that so much that it killed me.
But then one dude does start to come in and he pulls out the phone and he goes, but this dude is thick. You can't tell
but he's thick. The thing that didn't work for me, I don't know if you guys are gonna like this. Even though I did like the performance of the doctor, I wasn't crazy about the dick bow tie thing. You guys sold me on the idea that the phrase "dick ties" is a hilarious like phrase, but I'm not always like the biggest guy who like loves like an immediate like dick joke. So for me, I think when I like saw that sketch, I was like, why is this particular sketch here? I think there was like one episode that felt like this episode doesn't feel like it's themed. Or the sketches are as themed to like the loose narrative that's happening here. And for some reason, even you guys can correct me on this because I feel like it was Greer Barnes who was playing Michael's dad. Am I correct? Even though I like Greer Barnes, for some reason, the moment that like the dad goes to talk to anybody in the show, even though I like Greer Barnes, those are like one of the only couple moments like during the show where I was just like, I'm gonna check my phone. Like I was just kind of bored. Like I just granted I mean no disrespect to Greer Barnes. Maybe it was more I just wasn't as that conversation didn't pull me in as much as the rest of the show was.
I did think Greer had a few good lines, like when his son, is going, "Dad, Carol's pregnant." Okay, what trimester? And then later he kind of touches on it again. When he's kind of finishing the conversation, he goes, "All right, now let's get this girl to have an abortion, so you don't have to be a pig no more." I thought that was pretty funny.
And then like one last thing I really liked, and this is more of just like because I'm such a stand-up nerd. And I'm a new fan to her, but I'm pretty sure it was Rosebud Baker was in that sketch with Billy Porter. Rosebud Baker is a stand-up. She's not. I don't know how new to stand-up she is, but she's new in terms of like getting like a glow up, and I think she kind of like got it like a glow up like during the Panda Express. So like she, sorry. She got a glow up like during the pandemic. I'm so sorry. During the Panini by Lil Nas X, she got like a glow up during that time. And so I'm a fan of her. And granted, like there wasn't really anything for her to do but to react and be the straight woman like in that sketch. But if you ever check out her stand up, for some reason her stand up vibes with me. I don't know. I think she's really, really funny. I really enjoy her.
Awesome. Nice plug for her. I will say, I kind of can't believe that we didn't talk about this sketch because I actually have Atomic Twan as my favorite character of the whole series. I thought he was amazing. And, I haven't seen a lot of Billy Porter. I've never seen Kinky Boots, and I'm not sure all the stuff that he's in. Maybe I've seen him once or twice. He seemed kind of familiar, but he was amazing. We saw him as the security guard before the superhero, and they showed him in the elevator sketch when he's sitting there and
I didn't realize that was him.
Yeah, and so kind of foreshadows that a little bit. Of course, they're stuck in the elevator. The woman's like, I think they're stuck, and he goes, "If they're really stuck, then they'll be there."
I love.
It's great logic.
I loved when he showed up. This is the security guard, and similar to you, I haven't seen a ton from Billy Porter, so he hasn't hosted SNL, has he?
No, but he almost has an EGOT. He just needs an Oscar.
Okay.
Like he's in this show called Pose, which is pretty.
Yeah.
I think Pose won like an Emmy, and he's won a Grammy, an Emmy, and a Tony. So I've never seen him. This is the first thing I saw him in, but I've heard his name over the past couple of years. It's like a really big name.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's going to be in the Little Shop of Horrors movie that they're making as as Audrey 2. The Plant, if you guys are familiar with that show at all. But
I've heard a song from Little Shop of Horrors, but that's
yeah. But no, Billy Porter, as someone who I wouldn't necessarily say I've seen a ton from him. He definitely stood out for me, and is someone who let's see him host SNL and kind of see the other sketch comedy chops that he has.
He was killing it in those heels. I mean, I don't know much about heels, but the brother seemed like he knew what he was doing.
And the whole sketch was very funny to me. His delivery is incredible, and it was funny the way he found himself in that situation. Sounds like maybe the way you would find people looking, tied to a bomb. Sammy Kay, he was just looking for some good lighting for his TikTok videos. I think that's what he said. So that was a great sketch, full of great lines. I think unless there's something else that you guys want to bring to the table, I think we're about to wrap things up. So first of all, I just want to thank all the listeners. They are the ones that make this thing go round, and we have such an incredible community that's starting to build around this podcast. We've got a listener right here who's joining the show now, and it's been so great to have him. So I want to thank all the guests. And of course, let you guys, tell the folks what you've got going on in your life. TJ, thank you for joining us so much. What have you got going on?
Well, first of all, thank you guys very much for having me. And you're right, I'm a great guest. Let me stop.
And a humble guest too.
Yes, I think I'm the most humble guy that I know. Let me stop. I know I had a lot of fun here. So I did have like just a couple things that I want to plug, but I'll make it compact. So I have an upcoming podcast that I'm working on called Rabbit Trail. That's RABID. With some friends, we're planning on launching in June. And there's a podcast that I used to work on for about a year called Team Trashcast, where we talked about life in our 20s. And it was kind of more of just like a diary for my friends and I to talk about life in our 20s, as well as to make fake audio commercials. And you can follow me at King Compliment on Instagram and Twitter. I'm sorry, I actually don't use Twitter. You can follow me at King Compliment on Instagram and TikTok. And you can also follow me there for updates about things that I'm working on, as well as at Team Trashcast on Instagram and TikTok, because I also make like video, like content and like promotions for the podcast and like little skits and stuff there. So King Compliment and Team Trashcast on Instagram and TikTok if you'd like to reach out to me.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thanks. Sammy, what have you got going on?
Again, just want to thank you for steering the ship today. This was a great show. Just to kind of wrap up my thoughts on Shay's show in general, this conversation, really cemented this as a show that I'm gonna, return to. And, there's a lot of things even through this conversation that I feel like, I missed, or, jokes that I feel like I can go back and really appreciate even more. So I'm happy we got to sit down and have this conversation. You guys can follow me at that Sammy Kay on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, especially TikTok these days is where I'm putting a lot of my energy into. And obviously on the SNL super fan takeovers, the SNL Stats super fan takeovers as well.
Awesome. Well, it's been great having both you guys. It was an honor to sit in the host chair for this episode. My name is Andrew Haynes. You can always find me on Twitter at SNL Has a Cast. Of course, we have 3 roundtables coming up to finish the SNL Stats season, beginning with the Monday episode coming up after Elon Musk this weekend. And then, of course, we've seen the host for the rest of the year with Keegan-Michael Key and Anna Taylor-Joy. So this is going to be very exciting. Those will be 3 great roundtables. Of course, if you're listening and you haven't subscribed yet, remember to subscribe on any podcatcher where you can find us. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, SNL Stats. Look us up. Subscribe. It's a fantastic show. We'd love to have you be a part of the community. And I just thank the listeners and thank you guys so much for being here today. It is a fantastic show. Can't wait to see more of it. Don't know when that'll be, but certainly looking forward to it. And it's been an honor talking with you guys about it. And we'll see everyone next time.
Let's get statistical, so unpredictable here on SNL Stats.